Elo says this was just the right time for it. Do you think this is the right roster for it, though? Do you think that this team, as it's constructed, can win a championship?
I think they could. I wouldn't say they're my favorites. I'm still going to go with Brooklyn. But when you acquire Malik Monk, Kendrick Nunn, Wayne Ellington, and Carmelo Anthony to pair with the big three, I don't have a problem with that. That's a team that can win the championship. Obviously, I'm going to still give a team like Brooklyn an edge, but I'm not going to look at the Los Angeles Lakers and say I definitively see a team in the Western Conference that can knock them off or that there's no way in hell they can win a championship. I certainly wouldn't say that.
Well, I just feel like they're built for the postseason, right? And when you look at a team like the Los Angeles Lakers with the veteran leadership, you got guys like Trevor Ariza, LeBron James, Dwight Howard that knows what it takes. And when you have a group of veterans that join together collectively, the word sacrifice comes to mind. And each one of those guys know that they have one goal, and that's to win a championship. And in the 7-game series, you have 4 guys that are capable of going for 30 plus, meaning carrying the load. That includes LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, and even Melo. And the reason that the time is now is because Melo finally has embraced the role of being who he is at this stage of his career. And that's a guy that comes in off the bench and be a spark, a 6-man type guy that's going to give 15, 16 points a night.
He was so comfortable with himself in that press conference yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was really...
Russ, AD, LeBron. It's a pretty strong big three, if I do say so myself. But Max, is this the best big three that LeBron's played with?
The answer is yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I will tell you why. LeBron played, let's look at his big threes. LeBron played with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Tell me who among them, other than LeBron, was ever a thought as an MVP of the league. Kyrie has never been thought of that way. No one's ever made the case. You know who should win MVP of the league this year? Kyrie Irving. Kevin Love has never been thought of that way. Neither one. Between Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh on that big three, at that point in their careers, Wade was still a great player, but not as great as he once had been. Wade was not perceived by anyone, nor did anyone make the argument in those 4 years in Miami. You know, Dwayne Wade maybe is the MVP. No one even thought it. No one made the argument. And Chris Bosh is a great player, but also at no point in his career did someone look at Chris Bosh and say, 5-star player, meaning 4-star being an all-star, 5-star MVP. That didn't happen. However, this big three on the Lakers right now, LeBron's a multiple-time MVP, and when last seen healthy, I remember arguments a couple months ago, he's still the best player in basketball. He's the MVP of the league. AD, when healthy, absolutely performs at MVP level. And by the way, we saw it in the playoffs with LeBron. You could argue AD could have won Finals MVP, but he's had multiple seasons of double-digit rebounds and high 20 points and PERs among the greatest of all time. No one would argue that's an MVP caliber player. Now, Russell Westbrook. Is that the weak link here? Russell Westbrook? Russell Westbrook was a 30-point triple-double on average for the season. 30-point triple-double. Stephen A., he didn't start averaging 23 and 22 and 25 points because he couldn't still drop 30, 32 points. He did it because he's actually a team player. Look, Paul George, I need to get him the ball more, whatever. The point totals dropped. And because he's on a different team every year with different teammates, first half of the season, he's figuring it out. We're all like, oh, look at that. Russell Westbrook's not as good as he used to be. But then he figures it out. And second half of the season, every single year we go, that dude's playing at MVP level. We said it this year, the year before, the year before that, the year before that. So yeah, LeBron James has never been on a team, ever, with even one other guy we look and go, that's an MVP caliber player. Now he's playing with 2 of those guys. And Stephen A., it's true even if they don't win the championship because they're playing in a league where another team has even more in the Brooklyn Nets.
You're wrong, number one. Number 2, you have no clue what you're talking about. And the reason why you have no clue what you're talking about, Max, is very, very forgivable because your logic is deniable in this particular situation, Vicky, from iRobot. We know
I like
this.
Spock. I like Spock.
Well, you know, but Vicky was Spock too. Spock Kellerman works too. Either way,
I see what you're doing with the Vicky thing. I'm not crazy about it.
I understand that. Yeah, I got it. If it was a different name, that's fine. Vicky's, I respect that. Spock Kellerman. We'll use Spock Kellerman. But the reason why I say you're wrong, Max, is because you're looking at just numbers and you're not taking into account the moments, my brother. You're not taking into account the moments, the environment, the ambiance. Max, you have no idea. I don't care what you saw on TV. I don't care what you've done on TV to cover the Miami Heat in the LeBron James era was something special. I mean, I'm just getting a little bit emotional right now. Just hold on, let me compose myself with this. This is some special stuff, man. Max, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. We all would get that. We all get that with LeBron. LeBron, as you have publicly acknowledged, was in his prime with Miami.
Yes, he was.
He arrived there as a 26-year-old superstar, clearly en route to being the best on the planet at the time, right? He was there from age 26 to age 30. Chris Bosh is the same age as him, 26 to 30 years of age. He was, even though Chris Bosh stayed a couple of years longer than LeBron. And D Wade was 29, okay, averaging 25 a game. That first year, people were saying they were like the Beatles, man. Everybody, it was every day, were followed everywhere. I mean, they were just suffocated. I mean, it was crazy, all right? And LeBron James was just learning about winning. It's like when he went into that meeting and Pat Riley and them showed up to woo him to South Beach, even though him, Chris Bosh, and D Wade had already made the decision because Melo signed a 5-year deal with Denver a few years earlier that didn't give him an out in that third year. I always told you it was supposed to be Melo in Miami as a member of the Big Three, not Bosh, all right? But Melo messed that up, and that's a different story for another day. So it was Bosh, D Wade, and LeBron. And when you look at the pressure, when you look at the attention, when you look at the pariah that LeBron had become and how D Wade had to sit next to him for every single press conference to be protective of him like that big brother, and for them to go out there and to win 58 games and go all the way to the finals and knock off Boston in order to do it and all of this other stuff. I mean, it was special. And so when you look at it from this perspective, we can't even say that this Lakers squad is the best Big Three. We knew they were the best in the Miami Heat when LeBron first arrived there, were considered the best. And they were the Goliaths that everybody was trying to knock off. The Lakers, we can't even say that definitively right now because LeBron is going on 37. AD, we got to hope and pray that he stays healthy. And even though Russell Westbrook is a walking triple-double, the adjustments that they're going to have to make in terms of playing with one another, which I'm very confident they'll be able to do because Russell Westbrook was telling the truth. They are friends. You know, I mean, listen, LeBron has had him over at the crib and vice versa. They are boys. They do get along. You know, he is friends with them. That's legit. And I do think that they will do what it takes to work. Please don't get me wrong. But at this moment, we can't definitively say they the Big Three with KD, Harden, and Kyrie in Brooklyn. And to me, that's the biggest difference.
Let me tell you something.
But it is LeBron's best Big Three. I think they got to prove it. They already did in Miami.
Okay, wait. 3 things. If KD, Harden, and Kyrie were around back then, LeBron wouldn't have had the best 3 back then. They're just around nowadays. That's not the Lakers' fault that the Brooklyn Nets exist. If KD, Harden, and Kyrie were...
No, KD had Westbrook and James Harden.
Yeah, but they were babies. Come on,
that's what I'm saying.
They were babies.
But that's what I'm saying. I know that. That's what I'm saying. You said back then.
They're not babies anymore.
I'm saying they were babies. They were babies.
What I'm saying is if the Nets existed as they do now back then you would still say the Nets got the better Big Three. Okay,
absolutely right.
So that's not LeBron's fault that he has the second best Big Three today. There's an even better Big Three that didn't used to exist. Let me say this about 2 things you're right about. Number 1, this Lakers Big Three has to prove it. They haven't done that yet. I should say they could be the best Big Three. They got to go out and prove it. They got to stay healthy, etc.
I can give you that.
And I'll give you one more point.
I can give you that.
And I'm not going to talk about your experiences in Miami. I'm going to stay with basketball reasons. Let's stay with basketball. Yeah, I know. Or even cultural impact, because the Heatles were something different. I agree. It was special, right? I'll say this. The point you make that is true is that LeBron James was in his physical prime back then. That is not the case now. He was playing both ends of the floor as well as better than he'd ever played it, really, by year 2 in Miami, right? And he's diminished now. Because when I hear the best big three LeBron has ever played with, I'm really thinking about his teammates. Dwayne Wade was only 29, but I think you would agree he wasn't quite what he'd been a couple of years before. And Bosh is a great player.
First year was when he averaged 25.
They didn't win
when
the
he
chip
averaged
that
25 year. and he had to lead and he had to step back year 2 because he knew the team would be better with LeBron. But year 1 in Miami.
Year 1, you think so? You know, when LeBron got there, I thought of Wade as a top 3-4 player in the league the year before LeBron got there, along with Kobe, Duncan, and LeBron.
Yeah, but
Wade
what I'm saying is that when he got there, he stepped back just a touch. He stepped back just a little for LeBron because LeBron had arrived, but he still averaged 25 and a half.
It could be that I'm being fooled by the diminished numbers because he had to share the ball with LeBron. But
yes,
to my eye, Wade actually looked not quite as good as he had been. But I'll say this. To me, AD and Westbrook are potentially better teammates because they're closer to their athletic prime and because of how high-pitched AD's skills are, even compared to Bosh's, than Wade and Bosh. But they're going to have to prove it.
They're going to have to prove it. They're going to have to prove it. They could, but I'm telling you right now, as we stand here today, and there's nothing that's better than what LeBron had in Miami at the moment.
All right.
Nothing.
So Stephen A's team Miami, Max thinks LA's got a chance. You keep reminiscing there. All right.